Making a robot with your ideas, part 1. In part 0, I asked you to give me your ideas to start working on this robot, and you did. I got asked to put mac and cheese on it, which was weird, but pretty simple to do. I used a pipe object from the extra mesh add-on to make the basic noodle. Then I believe I took an icosphere to shape it where I wanted all the mac to be. Then I put a hair modifier on the icosphere, set it to emit from volume rather than faces, and then had it emit the noodle object rather than the just hair path. For the shrimp eyes, I took a smushed sphere and then made a quick stalk out of a single vert object with the skin modifier, and then duplicated that over to the other side. To signify that it works at McDonald's, I gave it a McDonald's hat because I'm not sure what else to do there. For the tentacle arm, I pretty much just made a basic joint, duplicated it, flipped it 90 degrees, and made it slightly smaller, then rinsed and repeated that until I felt it was a satisfactory length, and then I finished it off with a flattened tip. Then came the hardest and most time-consuming part, making the mechanized sword arm. Unfortunately, my psychiatrist has told me I can now only do sane things, so I made a sanely detailed mechanized sword arm. Well, the solution I came to is actually fairly simple. Figuring out how to do a hydraulic piston setup in Blender was a little tricky. But essentially, how I figured it out is that you take an cylinder and rotation and location lock it to an empty, and then have it track to another empty, where you have a different cylinder with the rotation and location lock pointed to the first empty. That way, both cylinders will point at each other and stay stuck to your empties, and then you can position your empties where you want to have your piston setup work. And then you can parent your empties to your respective object, and then when your object bends at whatever its rotation point is, the pistons will, retract and expand. But once I figured out how the pistons were going to work, I still needed to figure out how the rest of the arm would be assembled mechanically, and that took me a while. So long, in fact, that I briefly forgot it was supposed to be a sword arm instead of a regular arm and started to work on a hand before I realized what I was doing. Now, a lot of the detailing that will eventually be in this robot comes from texturing. But until I get the robot built and fully assembled and pieced together per your ideas, because a lot of texturing gets messed up or janky if you join something else to an object or mess with the object shape or go in and re-edit the mesh. If an object already has a detailed texture on that can cause problems with the texturing. You gotta go in and re-edit the texture, and so it's a lot simpler to do the texturing after everything else is made. However, after I got the arm done, the last 2 things were pretty simple. For putting ears on the back, I just made a basic ear shape and copied it. And to give our robot a friend, I just brought in my Metal S model. Then I hid his spin dash and peel out parts, and dropped him out of his super mode shape key because he was apparently still in that. Now then, what do I add next?